across the UK, online and on DAB. Saturday Breakfast with Penny Smith.
On TalkRadio.
Wake up and smell the weekend with the queen of morning entertainment.
Saturday Breakfast with Penny Smith on TalkRadio. We'll get you talking.
And we might get you exercising. In about 15 minutes' time, going to be talking about how to make your brain work better. Talking to Dr. Jenny Brockis, who's the author of Future Brain, the 12 Keys to Create Your High-Performance Brain. Yeah. Brains. That's what we're talking about now. Not eating brains. People still eat brains today? Dr. Jenny Brockis is a medical practitioner, a healthy brain advocate, and future mind planner. And she's been fascinated by the brain and human behaviour for a very long time, although obviously she's very young, so not that long. Dr. Jenny Brockis, good morning to you, and I think you're in Australia.
I am, Penny. Very good morning to you.
Very good morning. So your mission, it says here, is to become the Jamie Oliver of brain fitness.
Absolutely, I wish. Because Jamie Oliver I admired greatly because he's done such a fantastic job at sort of helping people to understand what healthy nutrition is all about. And I think if I can do something to help people understand what better brain health or better brain fitness is all about, then, you know, I will have made some contribution that would be really useful to people.
You see, I didn't know that you could help your brain. I thought your brain was there and then, I don't know, you stuffed stuff into it. It sometimes stayed there and sometimes it just kind of leaked out of your ears.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yes, that's right. But we've got this amazing brain science that's now available to us, and we've discovered so much more about how the brain actually works, and we can now sort of put in place things to help us to keep our brain working really well across any age. So it's not just something we need to think about as we get older. It's about looking after our brain, you know, whether you're at school, whether you're at university or in the workplace.
And you've written a number of books. Your latest one is called Future Brain, the 12 Keys to Create Your High-Performance Brain.
Yes, yes.
Tell me very briefly, the 12 ways. How can people who are listening now, just now, improve their brain?
Well, they're doing something extraordinary already by listening to this conversation, so that's a very good start.
It's a start.
It's about being curious about the world. It's about looking for something new to find more out about, and it's looking after your brains better because, let's face it, most of us don't sort of give two hoots about our brains normally.
Well, it's not that we don't give two. It's not that we don't give two hoots. It's just that we didn't know that we had any option to do anything other than just let it sit there.
So it's about going back to the basics that, you know, how we eat, how we exercise, how we sleep, how we manage our stress levels, and how we stretch our mental muscle are probably the key to understanding what it takes to build a fitter, healthier brain. And
right,
if we get those things right, then we're right on the right track.
Is there anything you can eat then that you would say, right, that is excellent brain food? Because I don't know whether you used to read that, what was it called, the Numpties, I think it was, or something, in the same magazine as Dennis the Menace, and they, no, maybe it wasn't called the Numpties. Anyway, if they ate fish, it was really good because then the fish bones could be used to write in the brain.
Oh, right, okay.
Do you remember that? Remember that?
I don't actually, and I must have missed out on that particular comic, but sadly. But fish is a fantastic food for the brain, and we're always being encouraged to eat more fish because of the omega-3 it contains, which is really good for better brain health. But it's not just one particular food, it's a whole variety of different things. And really the message is that if we eat a variety of as many different foods as possible that are fresh and unprocessed and preferably plant in origin, starting off with, then these are the best foods for our brain. So it's eat our greens, as you know, our mum always used to say, and add in some sort of lots of other veggies and fruits and nuts and seeds. And
it's the usual kind of healthy diet,
and know that we don't want to.
Right, and do crisps count because they are at least potato based? I know what you can say.
Sorry, no.
And exercising, then, that is about getting lots of oxygen through, is it, to keep your brain healthy?
That's partly it, absolutely. The more we move, and it's the gold standard is the huffy puffy sort of exercise that gets the heart rate up, but it's all movement that counts to improving brain health. So if we are trying to be as active as possible across our day, we're doing something really special for our brain. It boosts the oxygen supply, it boosts the amount of nutrients getting to our brain, and it also boosts the release of certain brain chemicals that not only look after our existing brain cells, it stimulates a process called neurogenesis, which is the production of new brain cells, which happens every day. I mean, we don't actually produce very many new ones, but we used to not think we grew any at all. So we now know that exercise stimulates this process. So that's a very good reason for sort of getting the trainers out and getting out and doing something every day to keep our brain really healthy.
You see, when you say that, Jenny, and I think of some of the fittest people I know, and I'm not sure that their brains are as good as some of the people I know who are quite sedentary but extraordinarily clever.
Yes, but it, you know, even people who are sedentary, their brains would work so much better if they just moved a little bit more. One of the biggest issues I think we're facing in our society is that we're simply sitting too much. We spend so much time sitting on our bottoms. And I don't know what the trend is over in the UK at the moment, but here in Australia, more and more people are realising that just simply standing more during the day or choosing to work standing up rather than sitting at a desk is actually helping them to think more clearly, and they feel better as well. So there's lots of research that suggests that, you know, it's really good to be sitting less and moving more.
Now, you mentioned sleep and stress. Often they're connected. Yes. People tend to sleep worse when they're stressed, and then they get more stressed because they're not sleeping well.
Yes.
What can you? How can you? And so, as an expert in the brain, how can you quiet your brain? How can you shut it up so you can get to sleep?
Beast, isn't it? Yes. I think that the most important thing to do is to allocate some time, give ourselves permission. Maybe it's even just 15 minutes a day, just to have a bit of quiet time before we go to bed. Because we're so busy chasing our tails all day long that we sort of hyperstimulate our brain, and it loses the ability to quieten down. So if you just take 15 minutes out just to sit quietly, or to listen to some great music, or to maybe do a relaxation practice like deep breathing or meditation, anything like that has been shown to really help to quieten the brain down, and that's a really good sort of practice to get into, especially if you're experiencing a little bit of trouble either getting off to sleep or maintaining sleep. It just allows the brain just to sort of think through all those things quietly in our subconscious that otherwise, if we don't allow, we go to bed and we sort of lie there, and all of a sudden the brain thinks it's time to party, and it sort of keeps us awake all night because we're thinking through all these things that we haven't finished sorting out during our day.
See, I know people who quite like trying to work out ridiculous maths problems because that occupies their brain so much. They love maths, and they find maths as relaxing as I find it stressful. And they find
I'm with you on that one.
they find endlessly multiplying or long division quite useful in quieting the brain. But that doesn't sound like it's a good thing, because you're saying to try and get rid of all that.
Well, I think in order to quieten the brain, it's doing something which doesn't sort of overstimulate the brain. And if you're somebody who finds, you know, doing multiplication problems sort of calming, then there's no reason why you shouldn't do that. But it's better to sort of maybe sit down with a book to read, or just to do something else that doesn't require a lot of focused attention, and that's a great way to quieten things down a little bit.
You were mentioning about how we tend to think more about brain health as we get older, and we do worry that we keep forgetting things. Why is it that it is definitely the case that as we get older, we do forget more? We forget names, we forget places, we forget all sorts of things. And yet we can remember all sorts of random rubbish that kind of seems to creep in.
That's right. It's, well, the part of the reason is that we actually reach our what they call cognitive peak at the lofty age of 24. So from the age of 24, everything is starting to deteriorate and decline a little bit, but we tend not to notice until we get into our 40s and 50s. You know, the speed of processing information starts to slow down, and that memory recall becomes really a bit naughty sometimes, so you can't remember your best friend's name, which is really embarrassing.
It is. I've done that. Yeah, done that.
So the main thing is to recognise that, it's normal to become a little bit more forgetful, but it's recognising what's normal and what's not normal. I mean, we all forget people's names. We all are guilty of that and misplace our keys and misplace our glasses. And sometimes it's because we didn't pay attention to where we put them down in the first place. But that's different. That's normal forgetting. What's not normal is if you sort of you're holding your glasses or holding your keys and thinking, well, what do I do with this?
Oh, right. That's when it becomes an issue. So it's not that because I always say I think the reason I forget things is because there's so much more in my brain than there was 30 years ago. Ask me why I'm standing in front of the laundry cupboard, and I've got no idea. But ask me what happened in 1976, and I can remember.
Well, that's right. I mean, as we mature, we've gathered all this extra wisdom and experience, and yes, we've got a lot to hold in our brains. So I think it's true, that we have got a lot to draw on, and because it takes that little microsecond longer to sort of access that information, sometimes we have that little tip of the tongue moment. We think, oh, I know it's in there somewhere, and it won't just come out right at that moment.
Do we all have different ways of? I'm just thinking about exams and that sort of thing, and people swatting. I was ridiculously so much better at exams if doing my revising was slightly pointless because all I would do would be reading things whilst actually thinking about something else. I was much better at staying up until really late. I remember doing my English exam and being up until 3 o'clock in the morning. Did the exam the next day and sailed through it because I'd remembered it all because I was slightly stressed, obviously, and thinking, I don't know anything. And I was much more focused. Now, is that, what about people who do exams? What should they be doing?
Well, not that, basically. But
that's just me then.
But you're right in that little bit of extra stress does help us focus better. And if you're more focused, it's easier to learn and retain the information. But the worst thing to do is to cram overnight because you just end up getting tired. And while you may remember it long enough to, regurgitate what you need to put down in the exam paper those few hours later, ideally we should be spacing out our learning over a period of time because that's how the brain is designed to take in that information. Because we've got to create sort of new synaptic connections between our existing brain cells, and the scientists now suggest that if we want to learn something, it's really important to study it hard, then put it away, and then come back to it a little time later when you're just on the tip of forgetting it and make your brain work really hard to try and recall those facts. And doing that over a period of time actually helps to really embed that information so that it's more readily accessible to you and you don't forget it, because we forget so much of the stuff that we look at on a daily basis.
Yeah, I've forgotten more than I ever knew. And just before we go, and I'll get on with your afternoon, left and right brain, is that an actual thing? Because I've been told that the reason some people who put the phone, for example, to their right ear is because they're accessing their left brain, and if you do it with your left ear, then it's your right brain, which is the more mathematical. But is that true or not?
There is a crossover of left and right hemispheres. You're absolutely right. But the idea that we are either left-brained or right-brained is what we call a neuromyth. It's not true. We have two hemispheres. There are some slight differences between the two, and they are slightly more specialised in certain functions. But we are whole brain thinkers. The thing is, we talk about left brainers being more scientifically orientated and the right brainers being more creative. And that's true to a point, but it just reflects that sometimes we have a natural interest in either being more arty or more scientific. It's not that we can't be one or the other.
Right, so I can stop blaming that for all my shortcomings.
No.
Well, thank you very much. What's the weather like out there at the moment?
It's absolutely beautiful, Penny. I wish you were here. We've got a beautiful sunny afternoon with clear sunny skies. It's just glorious.
Oh, thanks. Lovely.
Sorry.
Quite gloomy here at the moment. Dr. Jenny Brockis, thank you so much. Author of Future Brain, the 12 Keys to Create Your High Performance Brain.